to this online event brought to you by Matchboard in partnership with the BPO Council of Fiji and the Australian government-backed Market Development Facility. Our event is entitled How Fiji Stacks Up Against the Philippines for Outsourcing and will run for 1 hour. During this time, we hope to inform you and inspire you to consider Fiji for your outsourcing needs. We'll be kicking off with a case study, followed by a short presentation by the BPO Council and a panel discussion with 3 outsourcing leaders in Fiji. And to finish up, we'll have audience questions. So think of your questions as we go along and feel free to drop them in the chat room. I'm Sharon Melamed, Managing Director of Matchboard, and I'll shortly introduce our first speaker. Before I do, just some quick housekeeping. Firstly, we're recording the event. Secondly, if you have internet issues at any point, there is a mobile number and passcode in the calendar invite. And finally, I would just ask you to stay on mute until question time to avoid outside noise for our speakers. Now, before kicking off with our case study, I'm absolutely thrilled that we have a very special guest joining us live today from Fiji for a short welcome message. Ladies and gentlemen, the Attorney General of Fiji and Minister for Economy, Civil Service and Communications, Ayaz Sayed Qayyum.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is not the Attorney General. This is calling from the Ministry of Economy. I just want to inform you all that we are waiting for the Attorney General to join us from home. So if you perhaps want to wait a few minutes, or if not, we can just go ahead with the program.
Okay, we'll come back to the Minister then. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce Brad Hagstrom, Chief Operating Officer at Harmony. Brad is going to present his experience offshoring both in Fiji and the Philippines. Over to you, Brad.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, just share my screen and can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
So we'll just kick off with a little bit of background about myself. Hold on one second. There we go. A little bit of background about myself. So for my sins of my past, I've had about 20 years or 20 plus years now, sales and call center experience in Australia and New Zealand. And that really kicked off in 2001 with a company called Pacific Retail Finance, which was a peanut of a company back in 2001 with 9 call center FTEs. 5 years later, we'd gone through significant growth and had a trade sale to GE Money. And at the time of leaving, we had about 300 call center operators. Most of those were call center operators. There were auxiliary roles as well, such as administration and so on and so forth. But really what we're doing there, we created New Zealand Australia and worked for Flexi Group, or it's called Flexi Rent at the time, and started with 30 people there, and in 2010 we had about 300 people. Sorry, was that a question or?
I'm sorry, could everyone hop on mute except the speaker? Thank you.
Thank you. Look, during that time, and one of the key points in these slides is in 2011 and 12, Flexi Group started to offshore a large chunk of their operations over to Manila. And we'll talk a little bit more about that experience in the later slides. So just a little bit more about Harmony itself. We began the project at the end of 2013, and we worked on the IT implementation, which took us through to launching in August. In June of 2014, I had just arrived from a plane from India, and after spending 5 weeks up there on a Thursday, and had managed to book, for some reason, book a time the following morning, Friday morning, jump on a plane at 6 a.m. up to Suva to meet the team at Mindpearl. And that really was the beginning of the journey. Luckily at that time, or currently, you know, it was only a 3-hour flight. And what really I appreciated was, you know, comparing flying up to Manila, which was 12 to 14 hours, or flying up to Fiji. I leave at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm in the office there at 9 a.m. It's quite a pleasure. But in terms of the project itself, we started with 12 FTE. We had 2 months to recruit and train those staff. Training actually went a little bit longer than we anticipated for, and the only reason for that is our platform wasn't quite ready to run. So we got the luxury of actually really training the new recruits really well. In 2015, based on the success of the early intake, we increased the scope of the function up there, and we included finance and audit functions. So we have accounts receivable, accounts payable, also some audit and QA functions up there as well, which is really beneficial to the business. In 2016, we included more heads, become a true multi-skilled environment. We now have, it's fully omni-channel. We voice, web, SMS, emails, and so on and so forth. So it's a full operation. And in Australia, we launched in 2016. And as heads, including all those functions. A little bit about our journey at Harmony. Obviously, we spoke about that startup in 2013. We recently, November of last year, we successfully listed on the or IPO'd on the Australian and New Zealand stock exchanges. And throughout that time, we've had numerous successes, including our Series A, B, and C capital raises, and now reaching nearly 2.4 billion, and then obviously Fiji as well. In terms of the telco and IT infrastructure, it's as good as you'll get anywhere. Obviously, where I operate out of at Mindpearl, we have sufficient infrastructure there to support, you know, the high internets that we need, downloads, uploads, and so on and so forth. And also all the phone calls are VoIP operated as well. We've never had any issues with downtime, with the exception of the recent example of having to move everyone out of the office to home and set them up on dongles. But even that's been pretty smooth in the scheme of things. Yeah, pricing wise, look, it's very similar to what you might experience elsewhere in the region. It's somewhere probably better than 50% of New Zealand labour costs, depending on the roles that you're looking for, but very, very competitive. What's really pleasing about going up to Fiji, I'm sure many of you have been there on holiday, and one of the things that strikes you the most is when you go on holiday there, the big smiles. That's not just, I'm pleased to say it's not just at hotel resorts you get the big smiles. The first time I walked into the Mindpearl office, we went into one of the training rooms with a whole new class, and it was just smiles everywhere. Everyone's just so friendly and naturally have just great attitudes to life. It's really great to see. We're 24/7, 365 days up there. The literacy rates are high, and the recruitment has never been a challenge for us. Obviously, time difference makes it as important as well. For us, it makes it easy. We're operating in the same hours. We get to connect with them very easily, or an accessibility if we need to. And I was spending quite a lot of time up there in the early days. It's 3 hours. It really is. It's nice and easy. Jump on the plane and you're in the office 3 hours later. It's very, very straightforward. So where we are, we're in Suva, Fiji, which is the largest city in Fiji. We currently only operate with English, but we're servicing it across New Zealand and Australia. And we offer inbound, outbound, email, administration, special tasks as well. So we're quite broad in we're not just a call center up there. We have found other roles. We've recently trained or trained with a person that's focused in IT support, and that's worked out extremely well. So look, I probably won't bore too many people. Everyone's a call center professional on the call. But we look at general inquiries. Our loan application process is about 65% straight through processing, which means that it's not touched by a human at any point in time. So what the agents are dealing with, general inquiries, product inquiries, compliance inquiries, and so on and so forth. We also have a collections function there as well, which is our early stage collectors. So it's 1 to 30 days in arrears. And we also have 85% expectation on service levels. Outbound is really following up. So someone partway through the application, we give them a quick call to see where they are, if they need any help in processing that, payment arrangements, and so on and so forth. And emails, in this day and age, we seem to receive more emails and calls, but everyone's multi-skilled in those facets. And then we have the finance and funding teams. We obviously have multiple funders across our platform, and that function's held up there as well. And that's what we call one of the special roles, system support analyst, credit officer, and learning and development team. So what are the performance outcomes that we've had there? So we've transacted over, like I said earlier, over 2 billion loans processed. We have up to 30,000 customer interactions per month, be that by chat, email, phone call, outbound call. And through all that, we have to comply across Australia and New Zealand with about 21 pieces of legislation. And we try and automate or control as much of that as we possibly can. But when you get into a phone conversation, obviously that becomes, it can become a challenge. So we have a high degree of compliance and audit. In the time we've been up there, we detect very few breaches. They're extremely rare, maybe one a year, and they are inadvertent mistakes. We are supporting 5 time zones across Australia and New Zealand. And we're also multi-product as well, including lenders and borrowers. So touched on omni-channel. Some of the key results that we have is our attrition rates. When we first offshored 75 people in Manila back in 2011, we at the end of training 2 weeks later, we had lost 40% of those people that started the training, and then another 40% not too long after that. Our attrition rate up there has been 3%, and it's 0% in the last year, which is really pleasing. In the last 2 years, I think it's 1 person, so it's very, very low. Which means that we have significantly lower recruitment and training costs, and retraining all the time becomes a challenge. Bringing on large blocks of people becomes a challenge. You always see performance dip, which is concerning as a business when you're trying to scale. In terms of sick leave, our sick leave is extremely low. So again, 3% versus 20% that we experienced in Manila. People do turn up to work. We always achieve adherence to schedules and service levels. It's very well managed and run. We talk about the sick leave. We had a Cat 5 cyclone, which is one of the concerns you might have going to a country which receives a number of cyclones per year. The facility is cyclone proof. Since we've been there, we've been through a number of them. We even had staff turning up, when their surrounding areas were flooded. One girl, bless her cotton socks, actually swam across a swollen river to get to work one morning. So not something that we'd encourage, but it just shows the dedication of the staff. Also pleased to announce that just recently we completed our employee engagement, and we scored 82% versus previously 30% in Manila. So it's always, I think our lowest score there has been 75%. Our highest is 85%. So very high range employee engagement. The team up there is it really is a family environment. It's something that you get to know and love when you do visit, and they are extremely proud of working for Harmony. They're a great team, and it's to give you an example of it, when you walk in, if you haven't seen them for a while, the whole team will stand up, clap, and actually start singing. It's quite confronting the first time you see and hear it, but they really are a fantastic bunch of people in the islands up there. And Fiji is a great place to visit. No one's going to deny that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Brad. That was really informative. I'm going to run a poll, and then hopefully the Attorney General will join us straight after that. So I'm going to share that on your screen now. We're asking, where are you on your outsourcing journey? And would really appreciate if everyone could vote. The options are already outsourcing to the Philippines, already outsourcing to a country other than the Philippines, not outsourcing, but open to exploring. And we have an outsourcing project underway, or none of the above. So I'm going to wait for a few more votes to come in, and then we're going to end the poll and share the results. So just wait 5 more seconds. Okay.
More options, Sharon, I think. Outsourcing, but looking to switch.
Ah, okay. That's a very good one.
Group.
I made a note of that one. Great. So I will end the poll now and share the results with everybody, just so we get a feel for where the audience is at. 34% of people are outsourcing to the Philippines, 14% to another country. 34% are not outsourcing today, but are open to it. And then we have a small percentage that's none of the above. So I'll stop sharing that. Very interesting insights from the group. Thank you so much. Can I just ask if the Attorney General is with us? I know there was a bit of an emergency. He couldn't speak earlier. Minister, if you can hear me, if you'd just like to unmute. No.
Hi,
Okay.
I'm here. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes, perfect. Go ahead.
Well, look, thank you. I mean, I
Sorry, we can't hear you. It's very soft.
Can you hear me now?
That's better. That's better. Yes.
Okay. No, as I was saying that, you know, Brad, I think, captured most of what I wanted to say, although I came halfway into his presentation. But essentially, you know, obviously the COVID pandemic has given most countries in the world the ability to be able to, you know, look at the slate on a clean basis. And we've had to, as you know, we've been largely a tourism-based economy. About 40% of our GDP comes from tourism. But we had, as you know, in the past number of years, been having a sort of growing BPO sector, which we have provided various incentives for in terms of tax breaks, etc. But it also has meant in the past 18 months or so, from a fiscal perspective, we've carried out a number of significant changes, whether it's, you know, wholesale reduction on tariff rates, in terms of, you know, getting rid of certain taxes, and you know, getting rid of things like business license requirements, which are fairly cumbersome and bureaucratic and were impeding on sort of businesses to thrive. Now, as part of the reforms, also as announced in the recent budget, we have, you know, again looked at the BPO sector. As you know, that this meeting is probably also being facilitated by the fact that we provided I think it's about $200,000 to the BPO Council to do more marketing, you know, as far as the business is concerned. We've also provided a number of tax incentives, so BPO companies can get a 20-year tax holiday in Fiji. We also recognize that a lot of the you know, outfits that do want to come and operate in Fiji, they're not really interested in infrastructure per se, so they don't want to get into bricks and mortar. So we have also now provided a tax holiday for anybody that, for example, puts up a structure for a ready-made structure, so somebody can simply come in and, you know, plug in their computers and start operating. So we've given them tax holidays, and they build infrastructure for companies that do want to come in and operate BPOs. I mean, essentially, that's what we've done. And we've seen a lot of interest in that respect. So again, they get various tax holidays depending on the level of investment. I wish to again reiterate the point that, you know, people speak good English in Fiji. We also have, we've been told, I remember the first time it was brought to our attention was by Mind Pearl, saying that we have neutral accents. So you don't have to spend that much money trying to get our people to change their accents, or somebody in Australia, New Zealand, USA can understand, the staff over here. And I think again, the fact that the proximity to markets, Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, etc., is obviously there. You can very quickly, reach Fiji in a matter of 3 or 4 hours. So those are, I think, the attractions too. We've also, in the past number of years, also brought in the liberalization of the telecom sector. Costs, in fact, have come down in respect of data. We've also invested in the next gen for the Southern Cross cable in terms of providing the infrastructure, in terms of capacity. So I think there's obviously a number of incentives that are in place, and I think it's all coming together. And we obviously quite here happy to facilitate that. The BPO Council in Fiji, as I said, we provide funding for them. We look forward to working with all of you. If there are any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And essentially we have a fairly, I would say, savvy, young population that's very eager to work. They're very sort of much attracted by the ITC sector in itself. The other point I wanted to make, last point, is that I think there is the ability to carry out a lot more sophisticated type of, work in the BPO sort of ambit. Whether it's filing of tax returns. I mean, those are the kind of things that we need to look at and move on to. Because a lot of, for example, Fijian qualified accountants also have the CPA qualifications from Australia. So a lot of that more sort of nuanced niche sort of market type work can also be done by our citizens, rather than simply, for example, just answering phone calls or basic data processing. I think that we have the ability to move on to the next stage. So they are my comments. I mean, we obviously are quite keen, like I said, to be able to spread our risk as far as the economy is concerned. I think you'll find that there's some of the people who were previously engaged in the tourism sector, a lot of them would want to move into this space. They're already sort of customer trained, very much focused in that space. So I want to wish everybody all the best. Like I said, we're here to facilitate. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Naka, thank you. I'm happy to also answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll come back to you during question time for anything from the audience there. But I think the fact that you, as the Minister for Economy and Attorney General of Fiji, have joined us live today really underscores just how much importance the government is placing on the growth of the BPO industry and supporting it. So thank you so much again. So now I'd like to introduce Shagufta Janif, who runs the BPO Council of Fiji. She's going to present some interesting facts and figures for us about BPO in Fiji, including the similarities and differences with the Philippines. So over to you, Shagufta. I think you might be on mute.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Beloved Naka. On behalf of the BPO Council, I would like to thank you all for your time this afternoon. To give you a quick background about the BPO Council, we came into existence to support the industry's growth. So we currently have about 20 members, inclusive of BPO service providers and also our infrastructure partners. So here's a bit of what we're going to cover today, like Sharon has mentioned, so I won't go through this right now. So Fiji has always been known as the ultimate tourist destination, but we are way more than that. With access to excellent infrastructure and a diverse talent pool, Fiji has become the outsourcing destination of choice for many Australian companies. Today, we will talk about Fiji's outsourcing industry and how we compare with the Philippines, our similarities and our differences, and why Fiji is a better choice. So Fiji has been operating as an outsourcing destination since 2002, with ANZ Bank pioneering a Fiji operations hub. And this quickly caught the attention of major BPOs like Mindpearl, Pack Leader, Our Pacific Office, Centacom, amongst the others. The services our BPOs offer range from contact center operations, IT help desk, accounting and finance, HR, and recruitment. And the industries our BPOs are serving include online and retail, financial services, telco, energy, recruitment, and many more. Businesses of all shapes and sizes outsource to Fiji. You might recognize brands like iSelect, Rent to Kill, and Spotlight Retail Group being major ones who are currently outsourcing their business operations to Fiji. So before we go into the differences in our service offerings, I would like to go over the similarities between the two destinations. Let's take a look at the costs. In both destinations, you will be spending approximately 10 to 15 AUD per hour, which is an all-inclusive rate. Looking at these rates, your company could save about 70% on employment costs. Our literacy rate is also quite similar, with Fiji at 99.1% and Philippines at 98%. And although the time zones may seem similar, it is worth noting that when you outsource to Fiji, your team in Fiji will start processing documents, serving your customers, and attending to requests at 6 a.m. Australian time, since we are 2 hours ahead. Whereas in the Philippines, the start time would be around 10 to 11 a.m., which may impact your productivity. So, and our outsourcing companies also offer a variety of shifts that cover 24/7 operation for clients as well. So if your business needs 24/7 support, Fiji can also be a great option for that. So here is the big question: why Fiji? The first reason as to why you should outsource to Fiji is our culture fit. Speaking from our clients' experiences, Australians and Fijians mostly work with a flatter management structure, whereas in the Philippines, they have a more hierarchical structure. This means that Fijians can comfortably raise issues, share ideas, and solutions with management, whereas in Philippines, staff may feel that it is a poor reflection on their performance if they deliver certain bad news to management, and this can cause serious implications to the business. And another fact to note is that we have been serving the Australian consumer for decades, especially with our tourism industry. And this places us in a better position as we understand the Australian consumer and their needs. English is our official language, which is used by the public sector in parliament discussions, businesses, schools, universities for official communications. And of course, our love for rugby, who can deny that, right? The second important reason here is our infrastructure. We have access to high quality telecommunications and internet. And another point that I'd like to make here is that the Fijian cities of Suva and Nadi are much less congested than those in the Philippines and India. This means that your outsourced staff can get to work quickly and are unlikely to have delays on the way, which is also complemented by our excellent transportation network. BPOs also have access to uninterrupted power supply because they have access to backup generators. So this means there is no disruption or delays in your operations. The major advantage, I would say, when outsourcing to Fiji is our talented workforce. Our people are our greatest asset, and we have over 5,000 new university graduates every year. This means your business can get access to a high qualified team, and due to the limited number of job opportunities, the availability of skilled workforce is high. And just to put this into perspective, our BPOs receive hundreds of job applications for every vacancy or opportunity announced. For those of you who have holidayed in Fiji, you would agree and attest that Fijians have superior customer service skills. The positive customer experience derived from our service culture is what sets us apart from any other destination. And many outsourcing, the other point I would like to highlight is that many outsourcing operations involve the use of technology, and the outsourcing industry relies on digital savvy staff, which is generally a skill that younger people have. So 85% of BPO's workforce in Fiji is below the age of 30. And with our neutral accents, our agents deliver excellent voice quality. So let's experience this.
Thank you for calling. My name is Lisa. How may I help you today?
Hi, Lisa. I'm calling to get some information on my flight. Are you able to tell me, please, the check-in time and what my baggage allowance will be, please?
Certainly, sir. I can help you with that. May I have your booking reference number, please?
Sure. It's ABQ241.
ABQ241. Thank you so much for that. For security purposes, may I get your name and telephone number, please?
It's Michael Simpson. And the telephone number is 0413 456017.
Thank you so much, Mr. Simpson. And I can see that you're booked on our flight AB2046 departing Brisbane at 8 p.m. And please be advised that your check-in time is 3 hours prior to departure. Since you're booked on our economy class, you're entitled to one piece of check-in baggage not exceeding 23 kgs and one piece of carry-on baggage of 7 kgs.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Will there be anything else I can help you with, Mr. Simpson?
No, thanks. That's all I need.
Thank you so much for calling, sir. I hope you enjoy our services. And please feel free to call us back should you have further inquiries, as we're open 24 hours.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So that voice clip was a bit of the experience that your customers would get if they choose to outsource to Fiji or choose to work with one of our BPOs. So moving on to a location, as EG mentioned, and as it was mentioned by Brad also, that we're just a 3 to 4 hour flight away from Australia and New Zealand. So you can come visit your team and then hop on a flight back home the same day. You save time and money on travel while getting the most out of your stay. And since you have saved some time from the long traveling hours, which you would normally experience from outsourcing to other destinations, and while you're here in the heart of the Pacific Ocean with beautiful beaches and exquisite tropical landscape, then why not stay back for a vacation, as we'd like to call it. So the next major reason is staff retention, and just one of the reasons some of our clients are moving their operations to Fiji. Employment opportunities, like I mentioned in my earlier slide, is highly valued here, and because of the limited job opportunities that are available. So the employees are likely to remain in the role for a long time. And another thing to note is that some of the things that our clients have said that we have a single digit, they experience a single digit staff turnover. And the commute to work is also less of an issue and not likely to impact on employees' overall job satisfaction or their likelihood to seek other employment closer to home. So that's one of the major reasons as well. And also BPO employment is considered prestigious because of the office environment, and the people are motivated to work for international companies for exposure and for experience. At present, of course, we are all going through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're trying to deal with it and working towards our economic recovery efforts. So at present, we are dealing with this, and Fiji is progressing towards its recovery efforts and opening up the border, planning to open up the border by November this year on the achievement of 80% herd immunity. As of September 8th, which is yesterday, we have about 52.9% of our targeted population fully vaccinated, whereas Philippines currently stands at 28.2%. So another thing to note is that we have access to resilient infrastructure, and we were able to work from home and adapt to a hybrid model where 50% of the staff work from home and the remaining work from office without causing any disruptions or delays in operations. And with thanks to the government, of course, BPOs are now recognized as essential services in Fiji. So which means that we are now allowed to operate and provide uninterrupted services to our clients. Whereas most outsourcing destinations, you would know, stopped operations during the pandemic. So I know I'm running a little out of time. I apologize for that, but I'd just like to share a bit of the testimonials that some of our clients shared with us. So generally, if you see on the screen right now, it's about, they have shared their experience with the excellent service culture, our infrastructure, and the cultural fit, these being the reasons why they chose to outsource to Fiji. So yes, I'd let you all take a moment to read that. And I'll also let Sharon probably share the slides with all the participants later on if you'd like to read this at your own time. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you everyone for your time, and we look forward to hosting you and your business in Fiji. And you can follow us on our social media to catch the latest developments in Fiji's BPO industry. And now I will hand it back to Sharon. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you, Shagufta. That was a fantastic presentation. Lots of information for people to take away. We want to leave time for audience questions, so we're going to do a very quick panel discussion. And I'm being joined by 3 BPO leaders operating in Fiji. We have Alan Graham, Chief Commercial Officer at MindPearl, Brad Russell, Managing Director at our Pacific office, and Scott Hancock's Director at Pack Leader Group. Welcome, gentlemen. So I'd like to come back to this question of why Fiji versus the Philippines, and first turn to you, Scott, if that's okay, because I know you operate in both countries and you started in the Philippines. Why? What was the reason you set up in Fiji as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sharon, for the invite today, and welcome everyone. Yeah, look, I started my journey in the BPO sector back in 2005. I went on a scouting mission on behalf of Dodo to go and find a suitable location to outsource. I think at that stage it was 200 to 300 seats. That was a journey that we arrived at one location, and we found it, and we successfully launched. But I can highlight some of the issues that which Puraboy presented at that time, and then as a culmination of all these challenges, which ended up me searching for another location, a suitable location being Fiji. The initial, on the outset of moving to the Philippines on a large scale, we identified obviously that the time distance was a challenge especially when you're building a new campaign and you need to be hands-on. The time distance was apparent. The distance of travel, not only to fly over there, but to travel from the airport to your hotel and eventually to the call center, you can be stuck in traffic for up to 4 hours, and I have been many a time. And I'm sure some of the people in the campaign that's not new to in the call is not new to them. The distance of staff traveling as well presented a huge problem. Some of the staff were traveling well over 3 hours in the morning, and the afternoon, just to get to work, and they punch out a good solid day's work. But eventually, that pays a toll on the people, and they can't. They need some downtime, need some rest. Can you envisage traveling 6 hours a day just to get to work and back? I wouldn't say the subservient nature, the nature of the Filipinos to always please and be incredibly polite, often asking if they've understood a particular instruction and getting a yes response, only to find out a day or a week later that the message was lost in translation, although I received an affirmative yes, I understand what I'm doing. Apparently it was not the case. So moving to Fiji, it was an existing pack leader group, have been over there coming up 8 years now. It was a call center that was operating on behalf of Optus, and they insourced everything. So there was availability. I flew over, looked at it, grabbed it, and then our journey began. Some of the positives, and I think there's a tremendous lot of positives to be mentioned surrounding Fiji, which have been highlighted from the Attorney General and a few other speakers today. Telephony, the Southern Cross Pipeline goes directly through Suva. Therefore, the low levels of latency that you would experience on Zoom calls from other different regions of the world, or telephony calls or Zoom, it's very, very low. The connectivity, especially from here to the US or Fiji to the US, is better than you would experience from Australia. The proximity of staff in relation to the office, none of our staff will travel more than 25-30 minutes. So in the event of a ramp up, an emergency ramp up, or emergency requirement to have staff or bums on seats, so to speak, you can deploy them a lot quicker. We have had, I had to laugh, I think it was with you, Brad, what you said, or regarding one of your staff swimming over a river. We've actually had that exact same story. I was wondering if it was the same staff member, hot moonlighting at your location, but we have had that. and the smiles that appear on the Fijian faces. It is ranked every alternate year as being the happiest place in the world. I can attest to that. You do get a vibrant response whenever you meet them. They are very jovial, singing a lot. Every single time when you introduce a new client to the call center, it's pens down and everyone breaks into song, which can be confronting, but it's very endearing. Apart from the school, apart from the things that I've just mentioned, the literacy levels obviously been mentioned, very high. 5,000 graduates from university on an annual basis. That is a very good pool of people that you think that their proximity of only 25 minutes at the maximum from your call center. So the pool is strong, literacy levels strong. And some of the campaigns which we've run out of Pack Leader Group, we have a 600 seat capacity call center. And we've run everything from energy efficiency, accounting currently, telco, administrative support, audit, quality, measurement and validation, private health consulting. Some of these campaigns, which I just mentioned, they require anywhere from an easy campaign to a week of training, all the way through to 2-3 months of training to speed to competency. But I can attest to the quality of the staff and the quality of their work that comes out of them. I'm forever amazed and quite surprised at different times. I tried to squeeze it in as much as possible because I'm very aware of the time frame. You want to revert back to questions, Sharon. So I think that's all at the moment. And if something else comes up, I'm happy to take some answers, take some questions.
Thanks so much, Scott. I might just quickly turn to Alan at Mindpearl, which has been operating, I think, longer than any other BPO in Fiji, somewhat of a pioneer. Alan, why did you set up in Fiji, and what are your clients saying are the top, say, 2 or 3 reasons they're selecting Fiji over other destinations?
Thanks, Sharon. I think, and I'll provide a shorter answer. If I can make the assumption that all these things that have been mentioned already, by Scott just now and by Brad, and the other speakers, yes, the cost savings are there, the efficiencies are there. We chose Fiji because of, I think our business is all about human connections. If your business is about interacting with people, then I think that is probably the thing I would single out about why Fiji has been successful. If you're selling a product, or if you are helping a customer who has a problem, you're trying to fix it, it's the empathy, it's that smile culture that comes across, it's the warmth of the Fijian people. When I started in business many years ago, as a young sales guy, I was told, people buy people. And if you can make that connection with someone at the end of a phone line or in any kind of interaction, then you can make a connection, you can improve the quality of that interaction. And for us, the people have made the difference. I think that's what I would single out as one of the key differences and one of the reasons why we have been successful, and Fiji's been very successful for us and our customers.
Thank you, Alan. Brad, we just have time for a comment from you, Brad Russell, that is on this question before we move to audience question time.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. So interesting enough, we have a few clients that actually use both Fiji and Philippines. And obviously they're doing that for a number of reasons. One, mitigating risk. But what comes out of it is they have the ability to be able to benchmark their team against their Philippines team, with real data, success stories across conversion rates and productivity, team turnover and attendance, as you've heard today. And really, Fiji shines through in all of those clients' feedback that we get from them. In fact, one of them, being an airport transfer company, is actually one of our first clients. And very quickly after the Fiji team commenced, they completely outdid the Philippines team in all of those things I mentioned, in particular conversion rates and productivity. In fact, the Fiji team ended up outdoing the Australian team, which came to a complete surprise to the client, as you can imagine. But the other client feedback we get is around the Fijians' enthusiasm to do extra hours when they're available. They're more adaptable, resilient, and tend to think on their feet with more initiative around problem solving. And just to reiterate everything that you've heard, I've been living here in Fiji for nearly 10 years, I should say. And that bullish spirit is very much alive, and it comes out in the attitude and the aptitude of all Fijians across the BPO network.
Thank you, Brad. That's fantastic. We may come back to the panel just depending on audience questions, because now it's your turn. You can either enter your question in the chat room, or you can unmute yourself and turn on your camera and ask the question live. So would anyone like to ask the first question?
I might just jump in. Thank you, Sharon, and also host and speakers as well. Just a quick follow-up for you, Brad, from a remark that you made earlier, that you have experience or have had experience in taking a team from the Philippines and also in Fiji, but there were also a comment there around risk. What were some of the risks that that you're referring to between diversifying, I suppose, the talent between the two countries, if any?
Sorry, was that for Brad from Harmony or the BPO Brad?
Apologies. Yes, there are two Brads. Brad Russell, sorry.
Brad Russell, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, no problem. It's funny because I'd said earlier that we've got two Brads here, so we're going to have to be careful on who takes the question.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks. Yeah, so what I mean by that is it's probably against natural disasters in a lot of ways, because obviously Philippines has a natural disaster, and we have cyclones from time to time. As it was pointed out, I think by the other Brad, all of the BPOs here have redundancies, and we have the ability to work through those. I suppose the only positive thing about a cyclone is you always know they're coming, so you can actually plan for it. Up against other natural disasters. So, but what we've found is one, it's around that. So they understand, like there's only about 2 or 3 clients, but they have the ability to, one destination will kick in if the other one's under a bit of stress. But it's certainly, we're just probably coming back to COVID and what's happened during the COVID period. And I think other BPO destination or locations have probably had a little bit more pain points than what we have in Fiji. So I think that's also where looks to the government of Fiji. They're supportive of what we do, and it's given us the ability to be able to trade through the COVID situation, and now we're obviously on the other side of it. Does that answer the question for you?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Brad.
Okay, we have another question in the chat room from Robin. Have you had any success in setting up an inside sales team? Scott, would you like to take a stab at that? Because I know you've had a lot of experience in sales from Fiji. If you could just drop off mute.
Yeah, sure, Sharon. I would say that that's the out of all the campaigns, and we are continuing to run and have run in the past many types of skill set. The sales portion of it, anywhere from energy, health, telco, energy efficiency, I would say the Fijians in general are comparable to Australian output for sales. Whereas I think that's the largest differential between Manila or the Philippines and Fiji. They're a highly skilled, competitive bunch, and when you get them on the phone and you reward them through success, the results are quite astonishing at times.
Thank you, Scott. Also, I just wanted to make everyone aware that the Minister has also agreed to take questions, if there are any, from a Fiji government perspective, as well as Shagufta, of course, from the BPO Council. Would anyone else? Oh, we've got a question from Patrick in a chat room. Keen to understand what kind of social media monitoring, commenting, responding is available and across which channels. And I'm going to turn to Alan at MindPo, because I know you do quite a bit of social media service.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really driven by the client in this day and age, to be fair. We have been supporting things like Facebook pages for many years, if I can go back several years, when social media really took off. I think the truth was that the customers, or the client rather, wasn't really sure how to handle it. And I think back then, you had people working in client organizations that may not necessarily have been as familiar with social media as some of our agent base and our employees. So that's probably a demographic thing going back then. Obviously, things have changed and things have matured over the years. And what we have found is that the client's using an existing setup. So there's a number of products out there which cover all the channels, and we're certainly involved in that. I mean, we have one client, and all we do, it's a European-based client, and all we do is social media support for them. So that's covering all their channels and managing that on a day-to-day basis. So it's very much part of the mix these days. But what I think it's also important to point out that things like voice haven't gone away. Voice is still very important, but it's about finding a balance. So it's very much there, but it's not the be all and end all. But you have to be prepared to offer that, and it's certainly something that I think every BPO is capable of.
Thanks, Alan. Yes, I know. And often companies that just want to dip their toes in the water and make a start in Fiji or any offshore country for that matter, try to identify a pocket of business that they could get started with, and social media customer service is obviously one channel that you could look at in your organizations. We have another question from Ed. Which industries could be identified as the most suitable for Fiji as BPO? I know, Shagufta, you covered this quite a lot. Brad, you've got a real mix of industries amongst your client base, I know. Would you like to just give a few examples there? Are you just on mute?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Sharon. And interesting question for our company, because we've certainly got a huge variety of different industries and clients for that matter. So we've got anything from construction, tourism, real estate, property services, recruitment, HR, medical, psychology, psychiatrists, which unfortunately in these times is a growing industry. So they're growing their team considerably at the moment. Serviced officers, insurance, and yeah, to name a few, there's even a drone operator. We're doing work for a drone operator that do governance and policies for some government departments in Australia that they're working with us. It's really, the way I always explain it to any potential client is if the back office duty is being done currently in Fiji, we can find talent for that role and for that industry. Yes, it might be an industry that's not necessarily here, but let me tell you, Fijians are always very hungry to learn and to pick up new skills and new ways of doing things.
Thanks, Brad. And I know you yourself are Australian, but have been living in Fiji 9 years. So I think that's really great that you've got the best of both worlds for your clients over there. Any other questions from the audience? If you'd like to unmute and ask a question live. We've got a question from Robin actually in chat. Can you comment on software developer talent in Fiji? Who would like to take that one? Brad, did you just unmute? Sorry.
I was just going to say, the talent is definitely here. It depends on the level of where it goes. You know what I mean? So it's certainly, you know, the courses are being taught in the universities. So it really depends on, you know, how technical you're going to go. That's been my personal experience. We've had some success around it, but it really, for us, it's been around what level they need to get to.
If I may add to that, Sharon, look, we've developed in Fiji. Obviously, we've got bespoke CRMs which we've built out of Fiji, which are currently operating and supporting some of our vertical brands. We've developed both web app and standard apps on different platforms. So the skill set's definitely there, and the university is focusing on it and pushing more and more talent in that field.
Thanks, Scott. And I do know that all the BPOs provide the IT help desk to support the software and the apps as well. Sorry,
Sharon, could I comment on that, please?
Please go ahead.
Just to let you know, I mean, one of the announcements we also made in the budget was that we've given a fairly targeted incentive for Telecom Fiji Limited under the banner of ATH, Amalgamated Telecom Holding, to set up an ICT park, which is on the land next to the American Embassy, for those of you know, Suva, on Princess Road. And part of the agreement is that they will put up spaces where young Fijians can come, and they'll be, you know, offered very inexpensive rental facilities, or even probably free, for a few months to help them develop any software they want to develop. They'll be given the various support, because we see there's a lot of opportunities in that respect. And we've recently seen, for example, we've been having some discussions with the Fiji National University in respect of developing specific courses. And I think it would be great if those of you here on this forum today to talk to, in particular, Fiji National University, that has you know, really focused on not just the academia side of things, but also vocational, and to see what the industry's needs are. And we're offering, you know, scholarships and tertiary education loan scheme for these types of targeted specific courses. So that's in that space to develop that the talent pool, potential talent pool we have.
Fantastic, thank you. We have time for one more question. Would anyone like to ask that question? No, I actually just want to end on a question for the panel around the COVID response. Sorry to come back to that, everyone. So perhaps one of the BPOs or two could comment on what the transition has been like. Can Fijians effectively work from their homes, or has everything moved back to an office environment already? Is it somewhat of a hybrid? What does the picture look like right now? Maybe I could start with Alan.
Yeah, of course. I think at its peak, we probably had over 70% working from home, possibly a little bit higher than that. I think today the rate is probably something like 50-50, and that's changing as Fiji is recovering from the most recent increase in cases and situation. And obviously the vaccination rates are helping greatly towards that. So that's the first point. It's beginning to get back to normal. The second point was that it worked really well. We were very fortunate in that customers were obviously very understanding, and we managed to continue without losing any service. In fact, just as a side, I had to answer a question from a prospective client, which was, how much downtime have you had in the last 5 years? And the answer, when we worked it out, was something like a cumulative hour and a half. And most of that was actually due to the time when we were moving people out of the office, because that obviously had an impact, but it was minimized. So it actually went very well, is the answer, Sharon.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and I know the government has a no jab, no job policy, and the vaccination rates, as we saw from Shagufta's presentation, you know, first jab 95% plus rates in Nadi, for example, is quite astounding, the success Fiji has achieved in its COVID response. Well, it's 1 o'clock, so that brings our event to a close. I hope you enjoyed it. To everyone who attended, to our speakers, particularly to the Attorney General for joining us live, to our sponsors, MDF and the BPO Council, thank you so much. We're going to send a short survey to everyone to get your thoughts. And also, I will be following up to see if you have any questions, or if you are interested in taking things further in exploring Fiji for outsourcing. Wishing everyone a wonderful day ahead. Stay safe, stay well, and see you next time.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Does everyone? Some of the other panelists are gone. I
There we
think.
go. Yeah, who deserted us? Well, first of all, I want to say to Shagufta, great job.
Yeah.
You were amazing.
Thank
2
you.
thumbs up, actually.
Pretty impressive.